In 1902, Ellen White wrote, "Well-equipped tent meetings should be held in the large cities such as San Francisco, for not long hence these cities will suffer under the judgments of God. San Francisco and Oakland are becoming as Sodom and Gomorrah, and the Lord will visit them in wrath." That's from this book, Life Sketches of Ellen White, page 412. The Lord will do what? Visit them in wrath. As I said, that's almost 4 years before the great San Francisco earthquake of 1906. Do you think she was right? Did the Lord visit this place in wrath? You look at these pictures and tell me. 2 days before the earthquake itself, this is what Mrs. White saw in vision. Before I read it for you, let me tell you something. For those of you who don't know, when she had her visions, many of which were in public, she didn't breathe. Her heart kept beating, but she didn't breathe. It's been attested to more than once. Candles put before her nose didn't flicker. The first sign of breathing would come at the end of her vision when she would inhale deeply, once or twice, and then utter the words, "dark, dark," as though she was stepping away from light and coming back into a dark place. That said, let's come to page 407 of the same book, Life Sketches of Ellen G. White. Do you like the cover? We'll tell you more about it. She's writing, "While at Loma Linda, California, April 16, 1906, there passed before me a most wonderful representation. During a vision of the night, I stood on an eminence from which I could see houses shaken like a reed in the wind. Buildings, great and small, were falling to the ground. Pleasure resorts, theaters, hotels, and the homes of the wealthy were shaken and shattered. Many lives were blotted out of existence, and the air was filled with the shrieks of the injured and the terrified." She goes on, "The destroying angels of God were at work. One touch and buildings so thoroughly constructed that men regarded them as secure against every danger quickly became heaps of rubbish. There was no assurance of safety in any place. I did not feel in any special peril, but the awfulness of the scenes that passed before me I cannot find words to describe. It seemed that the forbearance of God was exhausted and that judgment day had come." That's page 407. On page 409, we find this. "On April 18th, 2 days after the scenes of fallen buildings had passed before me, I went to fill an appointment in the Carr Street Church, Los Angeles. As we neared the church, we heard the newsboys crying, 'San Francisco destroyed by an earthquake.' With a heavy heart, I read the first hastily printed news of the terrible disaster." Life Sketches 409. Granted, Mrs. White didn't identify the place in her vision as San Francisco. In short, she might not have known precisely what she was seeing when the scenes of her vision flashed upon her brain. But when you consider the warning she specifically gave about San Francisco 4 years before that earthquake occurred, and combine that with the terrifying vision she had 2 days before San Francisco was destroyed, it's enough to give anybody pause, which is why I find the following statement so startling. It's January 1st, 1909, almost 3 years after San Francisco's great earthquake. And Mrs. White is writing to one of her financiers, Josephine Gotzian. Here is what she says. "I feel sure that San Francisco and Oakland will again be visited with the judgments of God." That's letter 2, page 3, to Mrs. Josephine Gotzian. Did you hear that? Mrs. White doesn't mention getting any more dreams or visions about the place, but she said she felt sure, and that's the reason why we gave this website the name ifeelsure.com. She said she felt sure more judgments were to come. Frankly, I don't need a second warning. If she said she felt sure more judgments were come, even if she didn't have a vision telling her that, that's good enough for me. But don't you think San Francisco and Oakland should hear this too? Granted, the inhabitants of these cities are probably hardened to the notion of the big one, popularized by movies like San Andreas. But don't you think they deserve to know what I just told you? Here is what Mrs. White said in another book. I don't have it here. It's volume 9 of the Testimonies, Testimonies for the Church. It covers 5 years of her ministry from 1904 to 1909, which obviously covers the time of the San Francisco earthquake. She wrote this: "Are we to wait until the fulfillment of the prophecies of the end before we say anything concerning them? Of what value will our words be then? Shall we wait until God's judgments fall upon the transgressor before we tell him how to avoid them? Where is our faith in the word of God? Must we see things foretold come to pass before we will believe what he has said?" Friend, Mrs. White loved humanity. Did you hear what she said earlier? It was with a heavy heart that she received the news of San Francisco's destruction. She's hurting here. Clearly, she took no joy from the fact that she had seen the earthquake 2 days before it struck. Bodies flying, buildings crumbling, lives being lost. Where is the joy in that? No, she's hurting. I think it's perfectly safe to say that she was burdened for every soul that was caught up in the conflagration, every soul that perished, and every soul that escaped. I'd like to think that I share some of that burden too. That's why we've designed this website. That's why we're putting the videos we've chosen here. I might not have been alive during the San Francisco quake, but I want to share everything I know about what Mrs. White said about the earthquake past and what she said is coming. I want to share everything I know with every human being who will listen. What you're about to see and read is for San Francisco. It's for Oakland. It's for everybody on our planet with ears. All right, let's go to our next clip. It's entitled "Stop Her at All Costs."